Hey, welcome to the Industry Insight podcast. So, this is where we dive into stories behind businesses that are shaping the future. And today I'm excited to speak with Josh, the founder of Resonant. And it is basically a company that is revolutionizing event coordination. So,
Yep.
Josh, can you tell us a bit about your journey and how Renaissance came to be?
Yeah, so it's actually quite a bit of a long journey if you're really talking about how it kind of originally got it started. So back in 2009, I had kind of gotten into a place with college education where I was like stepping out of the realm that I wanted to pursue. So I was pursuing aerospace physics and aeronautical engineering. And kind of the route that I was kind of trekking along down, there was a lot of changes, and some of them for one reason or another I didn't feel comfortable pursuing that route anymore. So I was always huge into music. I'd been in some bands in high school, and like the side that really intrigued me the most was like the audio production side of things. And so kind of coming out of the route that I was on, I got more into audio production and recording. So I picked up a MacBook, grabbed a couple microphones, had kind of set up like a sound booth in my house, and like purchased a couple other pieces of equipment and really got into like recording. And so me and a whole bunch of friends, we had this crazy idea of like, oh, let's go into Microsoft Paint. Let's make like a little advertisement. First hour of recordings free, prices catered to your needs. So we would negotiate with artists about like how much they could afford to pay. Um, $1 per CDs, because I guess CD recording was a thing back then. And we went telephone by telephone pole in Richmond, Virginia, went to every bar, every venue that we could, and just asked them, like, hey, can we hang this like piece of paper next to your front door? We're trying to like launch a studio. Everybody was super friendly. I don't think we really got turned away or said no by some of them. But so yeah, that's what we did. That first month that we hung up those flyers, we ended up having, I think, 62 or 63 different artists and bands come and record with us and start building and establishing this relationship. And so it had gotten to the point where we had to go out and purchase like a whiteboard, draw squares, build out a calendar. We would draw a dash through each one of the squares for a day, write the artist's name, their direct phone number, and whatever time we were expecting them to come by. It was this really cool kind of path that we'd like opened up, because we'd have one artist recording, doing a session. Obviously, he would want to go on for the whole entire day, but we told him, like, hey, we've got a designated time. And so, like, finishing off some recording sessions, we'd actually have other artists coming through the door, getting ready, loading in equipment, whatever they were doing. And it actually kind of established this network within the city of different artists kind of working together and getting to know one another. They were all kind of on this journey of starting their careers for themselves. It was just an awesome opportunity that we had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. And kind of along that same context of starting that studio, I'd kind of come to this realization that artists have this amazing talent and this amazing ability to create music. But then on the other hand, the approach is so much of like almost a hobby. And obviously, like you start a journey, you go into a career, you're looking to build amazing fun times for yourself. But to really like draw it down to a note, you almost have to consider it as a business to certain aspects. Like you have to grind. There's a period for artists that I refer to as trudging through the mud. It's when you're getting up and running, you maybe go to a studio, you record your first couple of songs, and then you're like, okay, what do I do from here? And you can go down to a venue and say, like, cell phone in hand, hey, manager, I'd like to book a gig here. Here's a couple songs that I play. A lot of the time they're going to tell you, like, hey, send us an email, put a whole bunch of your information on there and everything else. Even today, a lot of venues still kind of operate within that scope where it's like, send us an email, like there's a portal on our website, interlink your socials, everything like that. But a you have to have like a pretty decent pool in your local area, because if not, you're going to book out a gig and maybe two's ticket sale. Maybe you can get your 5-10 friends to come out and watch you, but it's difficult to establish kind of like a career path doing that. And the best route that I'd tell my artists is like, hey, go out, look for acts that are similar to you, form relationships with these different bands. They've obviously got a little bit of a pool. See if they're open to you opening up for them or anything kind of onto that sentiment. Like you have to establish and build relationships, especially with venues. If you're going to come and perform there in your local area, let's say once a month would be a good line to kind of run off of. I'd say once every other month because you really want to give some distance between shows to make sure you're getting the attendance back. But yeah, it was just this thing where I'd kind of seen that there was a lack of knowledge for a lot of artists. So I kind of, from the recording aspect, stepped more into like a managerial role. I started taking on bands and managing them. I was forming relationships with venues. I was kind of helping them form relationships with different venues and everything. And so, yeah, that kind of got me into like the business side of the industry that I'm trying to operate in right now, or I guess I am operating in right now. But then a couple years goes by. I had taken a couple, two or three different artists, like really locked them into like, okay, we've got a shot at really getting somewhere with this. And my most talented prospect, the two of us kind of were at this page of like, look, Virginia's awesome, it's home for us, but the amount of like community involvement in our area, we always kind of joked, and everybody kind of in the city always called Richmond the city of lost talent because there was so much talent, but it never kind of had this ability to kind of move up to that next rung as far as being in a local independent artist kind of a narrative. So we had considered a couple different areas to move to and to kind of take our careers to. And really, my family was from Colorado. I've got a whole bunch of friends that lived out here in Colorado. Both of us kind of looked at every opportunity and were like, you know what? I think like northern Colorado somewhere would be a good kind of like throw life into the wind, jump out the door. Let's kind of see what happens with this. So yeah, we moved out to northern Colorado, formed a band. Band's name was Mountainous. Did really good. I think first year we ended up having like 2,000 organic followers within our own cities. So we would go to shows, any show that we booked. We could book shows 2 weeks from each other in the same city, and they were guaranteed sold out shows. And so that was a really good thing running. And then from there, I kind of got more into freelance audio engineering and working directly with the venues, coming in, running the soundboards, helping in any kind of capacity that I could in that nature. And that kind of gave me the insight of how the business was conducted from the venue side and really getting a peek through those doors and like kind of behind the curtain of the operations. It was really difficult for me to kind of watch happen. And I knew this from an artist kind of standpoint or from a manager standpoint, because every venue that we were going to book a show, it was a different process. Some of them, it was just purely in person. Here's this paper document, sign this pre-filled out form. Also print off tax paperwork, come hand it into us. Some of them, it was just purely communication over emails. There was never actually even a contract that was established. Some of them essentially had like Google Forms that was filled out. And so I kind of realized that there was no standard operating procedure on the venue side of doing things. There was no like universal, hey, this is the information that you need to provide. This is the way that the industry works. And so from there, even being like a manager for artists early off, I was always like, there's got to be a better way to go about doing this. Like, why this doesn't make any sense. This is too difficult of a barrier to entry. And then when I saw the way that the venues operated, I saw them like storing information on Excel sheets or just in emails and the lack of communication that was there, I was like, man, I started doing research for every kind of like management tool that I could pull. Looking for different options or different systems that businesses kind of integrated with. And I kind of came to this realization that there wasn't one. There was no like, hey, this is the easy way to do this process. And so that from there, we gave it a couple of years. Like I said, I started back in 2009. Resonant, the company that I run now, we've been since an ideation stage. So basically, like, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go after this. I'm gonna try as hard as I can to like build a better system for the industry to essentially operate within. that like really put my boots on the ground and marching after that goal has been about 2 years of building our platform. But yeah, I gave it so much time. I did so much research. So I kind of told myself, you know what, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go off by myself, kind of talk about the idea with a couple different people, and see what I can get happening. And so that's essentially what brought us to Resonant. So originally it was just, okay, let's just make an application that builds two registries, one for artists, one for venues, and then we give them kind of like an easy path to kind of connect and book between each other. We wanted to provide that resource. And then it kind of turned into this path of like, hey, the booking process itself is broken. Why don't we just provide a simple integration for that? And essentially we built this like contract facilitation ability within Resonant for venues and artists to kind of come together and form actual like contract binding agreements. Does the artist get a percentage of the tickets sold? Do they get a flat rate? Do they get kind of like a mixture of both? We've tried to just create components that say, hey, this is a problem. This is a problem that we don't really see any kind of clear solution for. There is no standard within the industry to do this. It's all kind of just like stuff written down on a paper napkin and everybody kind of shakes hands. And that's kind of what we've gone after. And really within Resonant now, we've pivoted again to kind of include a third party because we stepped back as a group. There's about 8 or 9 of us working on Resonant currently today. We've got 4 or 5 board members, kind of a staff member who's been phenomenal to work with, Lucas, amazing guy. He's kind of like right under our COO, Megan Lunn. And then we've got a team of 3 full stack developers who have been phenomenal to work with. We actually, in the last 2 years, we've gone through 3 different CTOs, which is mind blowing. When you bring a CTO, you definitely want to vet them. You want to make sure that they're a good fit. We had done that every time, but for one reason or another, it was just like a roller coaster ride with our CTOs. Yeah, nothing was getting done with us. It was always kind of like, hey, yeah, we're working on this, we're working on this. And then a lot of the business that they were kind of orchestrating, like it was almost like really close to the line of fraud. And so immediately took the board. We all kind of formed together. I was like, okay, let's do a vote. Where are we moving to from here? Are we continuing progress with this team, gonna like ride it out or whatever? Or do we want to take some action and kind of get ourselves back to square one again and try and make some progress? And so we took a vote. The vote was unanimous. Like, hey, we got to backpedal on this. This is not a good situation for us to be in. This is just elongating the development process. We backpedaled from a CTO position or having dev teams. Hey, if we've ever got any questions, be wonderful if we could come to you. I think we still touch base about once every 6 months. So we've tried to salvage whatever we could with that, but at the same point I was like, this is not a good business direction for us to proceed in, so we opted to opt out. And yeah, so that kind of brings us to where we're at today. We've done a lot of business development on the back end between the board members, and we finally have a development group that's making a crap ton of progress on our kind of like tech side of the business. But yeah, that was kind of the journey. I'm not really entirely sure if I made it clear exactly what we do though.
Wow, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so you were talking about earlier about 3 pillars of like live events, like the
Yeah.
artist, the venue, and the audience. So like, how do
Yep.
you make sure that everyone is like represented and like taken care of, you know?
Yeah, so definitely 3 pillars: artist, venue, audience. To us as Resonant, that's what makes live shows. It's not the booking agents, it's not the like audio engineer himself, it's not any other kind of secondary party to those. Those are kind of the 3 pillars to us. If one kind of falters out, the entire building kind of crumbles and falls apart. The entire structure just falls. So yeah, we kind of set off on this idea, creating Resonant, that if these are going to be the 3 pillars of our industry, then these are going to be the 3 parties that we take care of. We got to make sure that we're inclusive of each one and that we're taking care of each one kind of equally. And so the way that we kind of do this is, at least for our MVP model, so we kind of operate. So think of like Uber, Airbnb meets like the social construct of like a Facebook. And that's kind of essentially like how our mobile application is designed. We didn't want to reinvent the wheel on any of this. We didn't want to make it so that when you log in with our network that you got to relearn how exactly this network works. We wanted to build it to be super, super familiar. So the way that we go about doing it, we want to have audience profiles at some point. For the time being, I don't, at least for the MVP build out and getting this to market quickly, I don't see the reason why we need audience profiles. So like pages, but we do have everybody starts off as an audience like user account. Um, you can view events that are around you. You can purchase tickets. You can engage with different accounts. And then we have kind of what we call our L2 accounts, which is our artists and our venue accounts. Everybody starts off as an audience member. Think about like if you go to Facebook and you create a business page, you don't necessarily have to go and create a different login and create an email to build out a business page on Facebook. You just kind of say like, hey, I want to open a business page. And then you can kind of add members to that page. That's kind of the construct of how our account structure works. We wanted to create a system that really equally allows each other to participate with each other. So our revenue cycle, so the way that Resonant really makes money is we have this cycle of four parts. Essentially, it's artist, venue, discovery, so allowing an easier way for those two parties to have access to each other. If a venue wanted to have a punk rock night, they could kind of come into our network, say, I want to see every single punk rock band within 25 to 50 miles of my current location. And we'd provide them with a list of all the artists that are within the Resonant network. Same thing for artists looking for venues. Like I'm looking for a venue that books bluegrass music. And we would give them a registry of every venue within 25, 50 miles or whatever they set the parameters to of these are venues that do book bluegrass music. And we kind of simplified that process. So we've got artist venue discovery, contract facilitation, so allowing business to conduct between the two parties, promotion of events, which is really where audience members kind of come into the scene. I realize that there's no one resource for people to turn to find local events around them. Now you've got all these different things, Eventbrite, bands in town, even like down to Facebook and Google, but none of them are the go-to source to find live music that's happening like within 10 minutes of my location at the small bar. Eventbrite's really for kind of like bigger events that have like self-contained coordination staff. It's really kind of an application to use for coordinators. Some talent buyers for venues use the system, but it's never been a resource or a go-to for audience members. It's a slim margin of people that actually use it to post shows. It's an even slimmer margin of people that actually know that it exists and go to it to find shows. Facebook is really good. Facebook's phenomenal if you're following a particular band or venue. If you're not a follower of those two parties and if they're not paying for like additional advertising on Facebook, you don't really see the events and you don't get the awareness. And Google, it's just a problem with SEO. By the time somebody posts an event to their Facebook page or to wherever else, the ability for Google to kind of capture all of that information, translate it, and make it searchable, it's just really difficult. If you go to Google and you search for country shows near me, it's going to show you the Ticketmaster and the secondary ticket sales companies, SeatGeek, StubHub. Like those companies pour tons of money into SEO, but it's not going to show you the small local shows that like are maybe either free attendance and then you just buy stuff at the bar or tap room or whatever have you, or it's like a small barrier to entry, like a $10 cover fee or something like that. The information doesn't really come up on Google. And so that's what we wanted to do for the audience members is we really wanted to kind of create this system that shows you everything going on around you. And then kind of like the final process of this revenue cycle, coming from artist venue discovery, contract facilitation, promotional value, we finalize our revenue cycle with ticket sales. So this kind of closes the door on our revenue cycle. And I know I just said ticket sales, but we also kind of do promotional value. I think we've got it pegged down right now. The way we want to orchestrate it is $1 per day is the cost of advertisement for events that don't do ticket sales. So we created this very low barrier to entry ability to promote to everybody that's within, I think, the way that our algorithm set up right now is see all events around you within 25 miles. But if you just simply go up, change the search parameters to 50 miles, we increase the promotional awareness. It doesn't cost anything. It's just, we really wanted to establish a system that showed you things that you were actually going to purchase or attend. Um, some people are willing to travel 50, 100 miles to go to a concert that they really want to go to, but we wanted to just show our users things that are happening around you that you can actually attend within the next 10, 15, 20 minutes. And so, yeah, that's our revenue cycle. And that's kind of how we establish this mechanic to take care of everybody is we show events to all of our audience members of everything important to them. We give access to easier like operations and standard practice for artists and venues. And we kind of just sealed it up into this package where everybody kind of works cohesively. Even like down to ladder notes of something that I think is a huge, huge blaring problem within the industry is ticket scalping. And I'm not sure if you're aware, but recently Ticketmaster Live Nation were actually held to a Congress hearing where I believe they had gotten declared as a monopoly within the industry. Um, I think a lot of that was kind of brought to light and pushed to that stage primarily because of the ticket scalping, not because of the way that Ticketmaster Live Nation were conducting business together. Well, they had kind of formed this vertical merger where the two businesses kind of became one. And I think that was fine. I think the problem is there's nobody else that holds any side of competition with them. And I think if they actually had any kind of viable competition, they probably wouldn't have been declared as a monopoly. But the glaring issue that brought them into that kind of like limelight was the ticket scalping. I really do believe that. And I hate ticket scalping. If you look back to kind of when I was a kid during the 90s, every ballpark that you went to, every theater, anywhere you went to go to purchase tickets, there were signs hanging all around the fences at the front of the venues, like not 5 miles, but like half a mile radius of the venue. There were signs that said no ticket scalping. And then we kind of fell to this online ticket source ability. And then this secondary market just established itself of, okay, we're going to allow secondhand sales of tickets. And yes, this ticket was for sale at $100, but now we're going to mark it up so it's like 5,000, which is ridiculous. I don't want to go into too many like conspiracy theories of like, oh, there's people within those companies that are designing this to work this way so that they can like personally benefit off of it. It doesn't make any difference who's doing what. It's the ability to conduct ticket scalping that is a huge problem for us. So the way that Resonant's kind of resolving that issue is we keep all of our tickets in house. We don't operate. I don't ever want us to operate with secondhand ticket sellers. Like pat on the back, good on you for creating a company and being incredibly successful. It's just something that we don't want to participate with. So we actually keep all of our tickets in house. You can transfer tickets to friends. You can sell tickets to like user accounts that each of you kind of follow and everything. And we really give the right down to, or I guess the ability down to the venue and the artist, because during their contracting phase, we ask them like, hey, do you want to allow secondary ticket sales? If they say no, we never let a transaction go on our network that's for more than what that original door sold ticket price is. If we find out about it, we'll probably send you a notice that says, hey, like we have ticket scalping policies built into our network. We kind of invite you to reread through these. This is like a fair notice, fair warning kind of thing. The way that we've got it designed right now, if it happens 2 or 3 times, there's potentials that we ban the account just outright. If the ticket is up for secondary ticket sales, we've got a network that we've built inside of Resonant to conduct those secondary ticket sales. But even once the actual sale of that ticket goes on, say it does go from $100 to $5,000 and somebody purchases it, it's not just the secondary seller that benefits anymore. It's not just potentially like even a scammer out there that benefits anymore off of these sales. We split the margin in fours fairly and equally. Any kind of benefit or any kind of increase in the price, a quarter of it goes directly to the reseller, a quarter of it goes to the artist, quarter of it goes to the venue, and a quarter of it comes down to Resonant as a company. And we create this mechanic of, okay, yes, prices get increased, but also the artist and the venue and our company get to see a little bit of the benefit of these increases in prices, because it's really the artist, the venue, and our company that's going to get the backlash of any of those increases in prices. There's actually a guy went viral, phenomenal guy from Virginia area, kind of where I was coming up from, named Oliver Anthony. He went super viral on YouTube and TikTok. Had a song called "The Richmond North of Richmond." He gets up, gets into the limelight, gets super famous. One of the bigger things that happened for him post that song really catching wind was he had booked a show at a venue, had negotiated a deal, wanted ticket prices. I'm not entirely accurate about this number, but wanted the ticket prices to stay somewhere in the neighborhood of like $20 to $35. He had actually gotten information that, hey, like that's not the ticket price anymore. It's gone up substantially, and it's actually like being sold for even more on these secondary ticket sales networks. And so he just outright canceled the event, came out, made a public declaration of, hey, this is what happened. Like, I don't want to participate with this. Like, I want ticket prices for my fans to be available for a fair price. And this is why we made the decision to cancel the show. I mean, he's even gone out to like extents and publicly declared, like, I never want to sign a record label. The way that the industry operates, the amount of potential abuse that they push down to the artists, it's just something that he's made publicly known that I don't want to be a part of this system. I want to perform music, and I want to perform music for the people that truly want to listen to me, but I don't want to be a part of this kind of like abuse mechanism down to the audience members. So not that we've followed people, but really somebody like current date, they kind of stepped forward in the industry and kind of made it very aware to the general public of a couple of the problems that exist within the industry. And we've always, as Resonant, kind of followed the same ideals of like, there's got to be a better way for this to operate. And so that's kind of what brings us together as a company is really truly just looking at all these issues and problems that either participants within the industry, so the audience members, deal with, and simultaneously looking at the problems and the issues that the people within the actual business, so the artists and venues themselves, have to deal with on a daily basis of the way that they conduct business with each other. And that's kind of been our morals and values as a company, is like we got to bring this like almost back to the people. There's so much of a like corporate capture of this industry, even to the rungs that if you want to make it as an artist, you have to sign this contract. You have to enter into a relationship with a recording label and say, like, it's almost saying that like this is your only option. And if you don't take this option, be good luck being an independent artist. And that's not something that we think should be existing. There should be another option that if artists want to say, like, I want to hold 100% of the creative say so in my material. I don't want tickets to be at this price. Like, I don't want you, even today, recording labels have this contract. It's called a 360 contract. And I've got my own beliefs of why they've kind of done this, primarily because the ability to sell music doesn't really exist anymore. Anybody can go to YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and just pay up to $15 a month or whatever their prices are, and they get free access to music now. Yeah, there's a lot that kind of goes into the numbers with this, of how current day streams of a song and the equation to how it equates to a singular album being sold, I think it's in the number of like 10 to 15,000 listens to actually account for one CD being sold. And
Wow.
so the amount of sales have gone down super, super low for these recording labels to say, like, hey, this isn't the primary way that we make money anymore. Today, the current method to making money is selling tickets and getting audience members to actually go out of their houses and get off their couches and go to an event in person. There's potentials that we're looking into with Resonant, and really, it's just we're looking at them. Meta is making strides. Anything virtual. You looked at Sandbox was trying to do concerts, but yeah, the biggest mechanic to making money is event sales. There's some lines of context for the artist of it's called sync licensing, and essentially getting your music into the hands of like commercials or into a movie or something like that. But it's not really the primary way that a lot of musicians really get out and make money. It's by doing shows. And we want to create something that allows the independent artists to actually have a successful career being an independent artist. Um, to the same sentiment that we want to allow venues to really have the ability to be a profitable company. But we saw a lot of this kind of during COVID, but I think we had about 10% of the market in my local area, if not maybe a little bit more than that, where venues had to close doors inevitably. This one thing hits, they can't conduct business for like 1 to 3 months or 6 months, however long the timeline went on for. And they were inevitably forced into this position of, we don't have any kind of contingency fund to support the company. We're really running off of this week by week, month by month in good situations. And if we have a bad month or if we have a bad week, we have to close the doors. That shouldn't happen. And tons of historical venues that had a presence since like the 70s, you ran somewhat of a successful business, but you guys didn't have the financial ability to stay afloat in hard times. And we lost a lot of venues because of that. And so, yeah, we're doing everything that we can at this point with our company to build a mechanism that supports local and independent markets and build communities again that are kind of centralized around music, and take the industry back into the hands of the people and support them and say, yes, there is a viable option for you to have a successful career in the independent market. Yeah, that's kind of a little bit about our three pillars and why we think that those three pillars in particularly are important, and kind of like a little bit of like the behind the scenes of really the values of our company. We want to be incredibly ethical, and I love the independent market. I love the music industry in general, and I just want to see the ability for success to be had on a different note than saying, oh, you have to become part of this like corporatized conglomerate and like bend the knee to recording labels or Ticketmaster, Live Nation to have any kind of a success. And then once you kind of sign those declarations and documents, really the ownership, it doesn't belong to you anymore. I just personally don't believe that's right.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's this really odd thing because I don't think it's right, but I understand it. Like as an artist, if you sign that recording label contract, the access to resources is, it's like being teleported to a totally different world. The amount of like marketing teams that they have, the studio production access alone is par none. The support mechanism is profound, but in most cases, you're signing somewhere in the neighborhood of 90-95% of your royalties and like everything with the company that you built. I say company, but everything with yourself that you built for yourself, you hand that over. If the record label doesn't like a song, it doesn't go onto an album. If you say anything against them, they essentially blacklist you, and they'll make you sign a contract that says like, hey, you have to release 5 to 7 albums. If you get onto a bad page with the recording label, they won't let you release any more albums, and they'll keep denying the material that you tried to like create an album with. And it's just really, really nasty, disgusting kind of like business thing. And it's a business. They're not out there to allow you to have a good time and like, I don't know, like they're there to make money is really the end goal. That's the end goal for a recording label. And that's obvious, and it makes sense. It completely 100% makes sense. Like, who makes a business not to make money? But it's just the way that they kind of conduct themselves in a number of different situations throughout time. You look at everything back in history of the industry. Prince got to a point with Warner where he wasn't very happy with the contract anymore, and Prince, huge successful world touring artist, kind of got into this position with Warner where he stepped out of the relationship with Warner Brothers, but contractually bound, he could no longer use the name Prince. And so he had to go out and recreate his entire identity, more or less. And he was known as like the love symbol. There's so many different points within history, within this industry, that it's blatantly clear that something has to change. And I haven't seen anybody step up and try and tackle the monster. So we kind of said that's what we're going after. Right now, we're kind of doing everything we can to get to a starting point as a company for ourselves and really get into the independent markets. But as our company kind of builds, we hope to be at a point one day where we can really be some kind of competition provided to the industry of an alternate route that parties can take to conduct business and have successful career paths.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a
So
fun journey so far.
yeah. Oh my. So do you have any like final thoughts or advice that you'd like to share with the listeners, especially those who are like involved in live events?
Yeah, for live events, I mean, for anybody doing business, it's not easy. It's not an easy industry in like the scope of live events to really get involved in from the ground up. And the same sentiment goes for any business. It's not easy to just say like, oh, I want to start a company and I'm going to go out and next month I'm going to be a millionaire because I've got this great idea. That's not how it works. And I would be wary of the quick routes as well. Um, I've seen artists go viral on TikTok and YouTube. I'm not going to push any names out there just because I don't feel it's like respectful. But I've gone out to see some of these TikTok artists that go super viral and get the millions of like audience members and followers and fans overnight. And there was one situation that kind of stood out to me where I went out to an event. Um, I was there for like I was there for about an hour, but within the first 10 minutes of the event, they had played that one song that went viral. And as soon as that song was over, everybody left because that's all they wanted to be a part of, was that one kind of like viral moment to pull their cell phones out and take a quick little YouTube short or TikTok or whatever else. And then all of the material that came afterwards, like this entire building of this artist's career, nobody wanted to be a part of it. And I find that incredibly sad. Um, Same thing with businesses. I've seen a lot of people kind of get up to this like really fast running point and like get the funds and money and everything else, and just the long note wasn't played right, and the business fails out. They overspend their budget. They burn through every bit of kind of like 2 year burn that they had within 6 months window, and they're just left in this position of like, man, we ran too fast. And so yeah, that would be my note. Was A, be wary of the fast track. And B, if you don't get the fast track, stick in there. Like business in any sense, a career, it's a long game. And really for me personally, like yes, I am looking for success with myself and my business and looking to provide success for other artists. But kind of another sentiment that I have is like, don't make it all about the end goal. Kind of make it more about the journey and have a fun time the entire time that you're doing it. That's what it's about. Really, that's the biggest thing that makes a lasting impact on any kind of industry, be it business, be it musicians. Like have fun while you're building this company that you're building, and like build a journey and like allow yourself the ability to, when it's all said and done, have a really freaking cool story.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, most people just think about the end result and then that's it, and then they end up failing because they don't think
Yeah.
about the journey.
Yeah. And there's a documentary, I think it's for free on YouTube. I believe it's called Scratch. But there's a sentiment that a guy makes in this. It's about hip hop versus rap, not hip hop versus rap, but this kind of like colliding point in time to where you had DJs and MCs were kind of coming into the picture, and the two parties working together. There was this thing called break beats where essentially you could play a vinyl and capture maybe 15, 30 seconds of a vinyl and just keep looping it. And it really made that like break beat that's popular in hip hop of sampling music. There's a guy that was going through, I think his name was DJ Scratch. I'm terribly sorry if that wasn't his name. But he goes into this vinyl shop and they're recording him as part of this documentary. And like, there's all the vinyls that are on shelves and everything. And he's like, if you really want to see where the magic's at, come down to the basement. And so he goes into the basement of this record company. And in the basement of this business are just monstrous piles of vinyls and records and albums. And he kind of has this one line that he says in the documentary is, it doesn't matter how famous you are, how much money you make, how much of a difference and an impact you have. One day inevitably you will be another vinyl down here in a basement in a stack, lost amongst everybody. And it's really like, have a story to tell at the end of it, have a journey, have fun. Don't just grind and make it all like about difficult business. Like, have a fun time with it, make pivots, do things differently, but yeah,
All
have fun.
right. Yeah. Completely agree. So, Josh, what can people find about you and Renaissance?
Yeah, so you can find out about me and Resonant at the resonantproject.com. Soon, right around the corner, we're getting ready to launch resonantapp.com, so keep an eye out for that. um LinkedIn, you can easily find me, Josh Osgood, kind of a bearded fellow. So if you're looking at the pictures on LinkedIn, look for that. um yeah, I've got Facebook and Instagram and all those other things that I think I keep those accounts open to the public, at least for now. But yeah, the resonantproject.com is probably the best way to find us. Landing page will bring you to our wait list. As soon as we go to launch, you'll get an email saying, hey, this is where you can actually come onto our network and get involved with Resonant. And if you click to some of the other pages, there's a lot of information about what we're doing, how we kind of see ourselves fitting into the industry, and the way that we're going about it.
Perfect.